If some weeks you feel like you're smashing your life in God mode, and then the next thing you're crying on the kitchen floor, wondering what the hell bloody happened. If you feel like your mood, your focus and motivation just swings from one extreme to the other, leaving you questioning your sanity, then this episode might help explain why you're not crazy. Today's episode is information that can save our relationships, our careers, and in fact, our lives. Because today we are going back in time to the ADHD Untangled Live Event to untangle hormones with the one and only Adele Wimsett. And guys, don't even think about skipping this episode because hormones aren't just a woman's issue. They're a human issue. And if you have ADHD, they play an even bigger role. So welcome back to season 6 of the ADHD Untangled podcast. I'm Rosie, your ADHD coach, trainer, and fellow untangler. And this is the space where we stop masking, we stop pretending, and we start understanding what is really going on beneath the surface. And this week, as I said, we are diving into one of the most misunderstood areas of ADHD, hormones. So whether you're a woman, a man, a partner, a parent, this conversation matters because understanding hormones goes way beyond monthly cycles, PMS, perimenopause. Hormones are literally responsible for everything, for our mental health, our energy, how we feel, what we crave, how we love, basically how we show up in the world from day to day. And if I knew what I know now about hormones, let's just say I think I could have saved a lot of pain and chaos, not just for myself, but for others. So this episode is essential. My guest, Adele Wimsett, is a women's health practitioner, hormone expert, and she is a fellow ADHDer on a mission to help us understand this powerful link between hormones and ADHD. She is funny, passionate, and after this chat, you will never hear the phrase, "you can't blame everything on your hormones" in the same way again. So what are you waiting for? Let's get untangled.
A comment that I'm sick of hearing, and I know many other women are, is you cannot blame everything on your hormones.
Yes, you can.
So what do you say to someone who says you can't blame everything on your hormones?
I think this isn't just in the ADHD world. I think there's recognition from our own NHS that we're living in a misogynistic medical system that simply doesn't understand women's bodies. And this does such a disservice to women because your hormones are the most powerful biochemicals in the body and they affect everything. They affect every system in the body. They affect your immunity, your skin elasticity, your body temperature, your libido, your executive function, cognitive function, mood regulation, circadian rhythm, everything. And the menstrual cycle has actually been recognized as the 5th vital sign. Yet how often do you walk into a doctor's surgery and they say, "Tell me about your last period. What was that like?" And that's because they're just not trained in it. And that's not a criticism. It's just a fact that women's bodies are massively misunderstood. Even lab rats tend to be male. So all the medication is tested on a male physiology. And we know women are much more likely to have side effects. So we have been largely missing in lots of the research and understanding, particularly in ADHD. So I would say they really need to begin to understand the enormous impact hormones have on every aspect of our lives and our body.
And how do we get them to understand the importance of that in one sentence?
I don't think you can. We can't do that in one sentence. I think if you're talking about approaching a practitioner and talking about your lived experience with hormones, it's data. You want to gather data, whether that is tracking through your own traits and what's happening throughout the month. There's some incredible testing that you can do at home that is so validating and amazing. I use a device called Mirror, but it's gathering the data for yourself because, like so many things for all the ADHD people, we have to advocate for ourselves because I think we live in a world that really largely doesn't understand us. And when you add hormones into that women that I see in my clinic quite often have been gaslit. They're often traumatized by just trying to seek help. So I don't think you can sum it up in one sentence, but I think it's starting to know your unique rhythm, your unique flow, and then using that as a way to make things better for yourself and communicating it to your support.
I love that. And what about if it's your partner or a family member, like your dad, for instance?
I wish I had a magic answer to that. My husband's been in this for 7 years now and he's still like, "Oh no, not more periods and vaginas." I think actually, I believe, I'm going to talk particularly about heterosexual relationships because there's that different understanding. And I think most guys just want their partner to be happy. And once we start to understand for ourselves where maybe what I call the strengths and the shadows of each part of your cycle and hormonal life season are, most guys just want to know that and be like, okay, so you can start to say, don't talk to me about finances at that part of my cycle, or leave me alone and do not touch me at that part of the cycle. And we can start, but actually do touch me then. You know, starting to have those conversations can be really, really real game changers for relationships, actually. And I think a lot of our guys want to come on the journey with us and understand it. You know, I see a lot of women in perimenopause, and this is a huge time of divorce and relationships breaking down. And I really believe that with the understanding, usually the guys like the science, they're not so interested in what I call the more woo-woo side that I love as well. But getting that information across, look, my progesterone has dropped, and progesterone is a mood stabilizer and nervous system regulator. I haven't got it anymore. So my BS filter is off, you know, and starting to, okay, that makes sense. It's biochemistry. So I think if we can get our partners on board, it can be an absolute game changer for relationships or family dynamics. You know, you can say to your dad, if they're open to it, or brothers or male friends, like, this is what's going on. And just taking the shame and taboo out of periods.
Yeah, I think that's so useful. And I've been doing that actually in the work environment. Like, if someone's supporting me, I've put like, oh, this is my PMDD week. So I'm probably going to be more sensitive, or, you know, you might think, I don't want to work for you anymore. Please don't leave me. It's just the week before, you know, that week before your menstrual cycle. So I think it's so useful. And do you know what I heard? Jamie from Matter, actually, who has the neurodivergent dating app, he said that he has Flow downloaded on his phone. And I literally nearly cried. Flow is like an app that
cycle tracking.
Tracks your cycle. And he has his girlfriend's cycle on his phone.
So good.
And when it was that week, he brought in a smoothie to her and a croissant in the morning.
Oh my God, can we duplicate him?
Oh my God, I know. Are you joking? So I think that it's the tracking, isn't it? And that information.
It's so powerful. It's simple. It's not always easy because we've got to be consistent. And consistency is not always our friend.
No.
But I think, and we can talk more about this, but I think paper tracking, old-fashioned.
You've got a great one of those.
Add a pen, have your hyper traits, your inattentive traits, have it by the side of your bed with a pen that you're not allowed to use for anything else. Because if you get into bed and the pen's not there, you won't do it. But have it there, and then you can start to see the difference in the data, and you can speak to the people in your life around it. And go, look, you can't argue with that. And that's the simplest, most powerful thing a woman can do who's still cycling.
Yeah. And I think you're right, that out of sight, out of mind with us. I think the old school tools tend to work better for us, don't they?
And I've never found an app that does what we need it to do.
No, definitely not. Too many. There's too many ADHD apps. Okay, next question. The first research showing how hormones affect ADHD medication only came out in 2023. How does that make you feel?
Angry. I think anger is probably the emotion that fuels most of the work that I do on a daily basis. There's a huge gender bias in the research, which is recognised. We had a couple of odd bits of research, like 2018, someone said, the hormone cycle affects ADHD. We're like, oh, you know. And that was it. What we're starting to get now is more data on, which I think is validating women's experiences. What we're missing is the why. So there's a university in New Zealand, I think, that I spoke to recently. I did a study at the beginning of this year into perimenopause and ADHD because there's nothing into this season. And I get very frustrated around the narrative that estrogen is the savior for ADHD women. It's not. Estrogen is a very, very harmful hormone when not used properly and can exacerbate traits in ADHD women. Progesterone for me, I'm obsessed with. I could probably talk to you all day about that, but I won't go down there. So I completed a study because there's this massive gap in research, and now it's been picked up by a university in New Zealand, and they're taking it deeper. And I've said, what about progesterone? And they're like, huh? And everything's about estrogen. No, it's not. Estrogen's, so we need more of the why. That's what we need. And it makes, I believe, I can't just moan about the fact that it's not there. I've got to go out and create it and create a narrative around it. So yes, it makes me angry. It's a short answer.
Angry. estrogen, tell us more about why that is dangerous for, or can be with ADHD.
I call estrogen the party girl of the hormone world. When she's behaving herself in your body, you're going to feel sexy and confident. It's going to sensitize your dopamine and serotonin. She's a bit like the Beyonce of the hormone world. You're going to feel good. However, on the flip side of her, she sensitizes a neurotransmitter called glutamate, which is very excitatory. Okay. And particularly if we have a history of trauma, this is much more likely to be an issue. So we can go in from excitatory into anxiety, overwhelm, overstimulation quite quickly because of the glutamate. And I would suggest, in my opinion, just being an undiagnosed little girl with rejection sensitivity dysphoria is traumatic enough in itself. So we're much more prone to have sensitivities to these neurotransmitters going out of balance. And estrogen feeds glutamate, sensitizes glutamate, makes it work more. So quite often ADHD women can feel really crap when they're ovulating. And they're like, I'm meant to feel really good. I've got PMT. So I want to look at what's happening with glutamate. And also histamine. We're much more prone as ADHD people to have histamine issues. And histamine isn't just about allergies. Histamine acts as a neurotransmitter in the brain and can have a massive impact on mood. There's a relationship there with PMDD. And so estrogen feeds histamine and histamine feeds estrogen. So when we have this, what I believe to be a harmful narrative that comes out of, all women need, in perimenopause, ADHD women need to be on estrogen HRT. Really don't believe that. I think actually it can make things a lot worse, even to the point of women being suicidal on higher doses. Just up your estrogen, up your estrogen. It's a really harmful narrative. So yeah, that's estrogen. We need her, but not in the way the mainstream narrative would have us believe.
Is that why during certain times of my cycle that I might think, I fancy drinking again?
Yeah.
Or I fancy all the things that I've worked so hard not to do as much anymore?
So there was a study that came out in, what year are we in? 2024. It's the first study that has come out that gives a hormone model throughout the cycle for ADHD women. And I've spoken to the lead professor on it, and she said we just couldn't research progesterone as well. So it's very estrogen based. And what this study suggested is that when you've just ovulated, so roughly around day 14, estrogen peaks and then she starts to decline. And at that point, their findings were that hyperactive traits were much more prevalent. So much more prone to risk-taking behavior, substance misuse, aggression. They saw that there. And then in the later part of the cycle, in the late luteal phase, just before your period is due, we saw a flare-up of inattentive traits. So it was just, I felt it was really good that now we had this model that kind of couldn't be argued with. But I think there's a lot more work to do it around that. Yeah.
So what would be your advice during that time of your cycle when you are more likely to risk take and want to go drink? Do we lock ourselves away?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, so lock you in a room, don't let you out.
I actually feel like I need to do that sometimes.
And this is what I mean. I think this is where we need the information. Well, what am I meant to do with that? And the answer is, from a scientific perspective, we just don't know. What I would be suggesting is with the cycle tracking data. So if you've been tracking where you are and noticing this pattern and this ebb and flow, you then start to use something called menstrual cycle awareness, where you look at this data and go, that is a danger zone for me. So I often have that, like, I don't really drink, and then suddenly I'm like, I want to drink.
I want 20 Marlboro Light and a cigarette and a drink. And I'm like, what's happening here?
So I literally, when I know that's happening, I literally have to pay to book myself into events where I'll be like a kirtan or a yoga or something.
Silent retreat.
Like, the other side. Yeah, I have to. It's learning that about myself.
Yeah.
So there's no hormonal biological thing to do. It's strategy around your lived experience.
How would we know that we are, imbalanced in estrogen, I suppose, starting with estrogen?
So usually if a woman has too much estrogen, you're going to have heavy periods. Things fibroids, endo, adenomyosis are all estrogen driven. They're not caused by estrogen. PMT, menstrual migraines, sore boobs, PMDD. These are markers. Heavy bleeds, clotty bleeds, crampy bleeds, all the things we've been told are normal. They're not normal. Just because they're common doesn't make them normal. This is a sign that estrogen is running the show.
And then PMDD, tell us what that is for those who don't know.
So PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and it's PMT on steroids, and it's absolutely debilitating for women who experience it. And ADHD women have been shown through research to be 10 times more likely to experience it. And it's absolutely debilitating. Women can end up having suicidal ideation. And the minute their period comes, it's like, oh, I'm back. Or when their period stops, depending on what their pattern is. But it's much more prevalent in the ADHD community. I see a lot of it.
Do we know why that is?
Yeah. I believe that it is due to the fact that we have much more sensitive nervous systems and hormones. And when I say sensitive, I don't mean it in the derogatory way that we've been told all our life we're too sensitive. I don't mean it like that. I mean, we are the women that are on. We walk in a room, our nervous system tells us who likes us, who doesn't like us, what's expected of me, what have I got to do? That's a lot. It's magical sometimes, but it's exhausting. So we have a sensitivity to shifts in hormonal patterns in the body and in the brain. The research also shows us that women who've experienced trauma are much more likely to have a sensitivity to something called allopregnanolone, and that is a metabolite of progesterone. So one theory around PMDD is that when the GABA receptors in the brain have experienced trauma, the calming, soothing allopregnanolone, which is like our Valium for your body, that biochemical process doesn't work properly. And that is thought to cause PMDD, which would make more sense why it's prevalent in our community. What I would say is I work with a lot of women with PMDD, and progesterone is often seen as the enemy. When we get progesterone right, it's the cure. I see it time and time and time again. Women come to me and go, don't fucking talk to me about progesterone. I hate it. I'm intolerant. I'm sensitive. I go, okay. And when someone feels safe enough and they're open to it, we prescribe very high doses of progesterone in our clinic. And every single one to date has been the antidote.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you've ever felt called to make a real difference, this just might be it. I'm Rosie, an ADHD coach, and together with everyone's favourite neuroscientist, Dr. McGow, we have created a certified ADHD coach training. This is not just another training or course. This is a living curriculum built from science, movement, and lived experience. You'll learn how to coach ADHD clients with confidence, create meaningful change, and build a career that truly reflects who you are. Doors are now open, and head to untangledco.com to join the movement. Let's get untangled.
To tell us, what is progesterone? If estrogen's the Beyonce, what is progesterone?
I've got a book coming out with her next month. I love her. So if estrogen is the party girl, progesterone is like the mama who comes back to the house party and she goes, calm down. It's time to go to sleep now. And this is the role progesterone plays. Now, if you think you're insensitive to it, you're going to probably want to throat punch me for telling you that it's calming. But what it does, progesterone, the brain is covered in estrogen and progesterone receptors. And progesterone's job, and I won't bore you with the biochemical pathways, but the progesterone's job is to make the neurotransmitter GABA work better. And that's the really calming bit on the nervous system. And what I see clinically is that most ADHD women, be that linked to trauma or some of the other things that I've spoken about, need a much higher dose of progesterone and a different form of delivery than you're likely to get on the NHS. And that's something I'm really passionate about, is that women get the right form in the right way for them. But progesterone is the buffer to adrenaline. And if for any of you interested, there's an incredible book called Adrenaline Dominance by Dr. Michael Platt. And I love how he speaks about ADHD. He says it's all the good bits of adrenaline until it's not. And his protocol to actually support people with women with and men with ADHD and children with ADHD is a progesterone cream used 3 times a day before your main meals with blood sugar regulation. And it's an incredible protocol. Highly effective, works very quickly. And one of the reasons for the progesterone is it blocks the adrenaline from working. So even if we're pumping out the adrenaline all the time, it doesn't get to do the adrenaline drop because the progesterone stops it.
It's the Zen chick.
Yeah, she is the Zen chick. She's the Zen yoga chick when she's working properly and in the right amount. Usually when women think they're progesterone intolerant, they're usually estrogen dominant.
And you said before, didn't you, about these? So you have to ask for the bio.
Yeah.
And how easy is it to get biochemical chemicals from the GP.
Age. Yeah, it depends on your age. Anyone usually now over 40 can get body identical progesterone. The issue with the NHS, they're about 60 years behind where they need to be with understanding progesterone. And they do very, very, very low doses. And the low doses can cause more harm than good. You can buy an over-the-counter progesterone cream, which is brilliant. The company I like to use is ONAS, which is ONAS. And they're amazing. I've got a bottle with me. I carry it everywhere. It's in every cell of your body within 20 seconds and very effective at regulating mood.
Love that. So how would you know that you need progesterone? Is it that risk-taking, that hyperactivity traits are most dominant? Is that how we could tell if we're going to get it over the counter?
Yeah, I'm yet to meet an ADHD person who doesn't need it. You could test, so you can do an at-home testing, which tracks your cycle, your exact estrogen and progesterone levels, and you can have a look. But for me, I'm interested in your symptoms. If you are progesterone deficient, I think progesterone deficiency is like a slow erosion of your soul, okay? We don't tend, unless we've been put into surgical menopause, we don't tend to wake up progesterone deficient. We start to stop ovulating so frequently and we just gently decline for most women. Men stop producing progesterone by the age of 50, okay? Men are progesterone deficient as well. It's a human hormone, not a male hormone. And some of the things you might notice is a constant irritability, a bit of a scratchiness. It can be as extreme as anxiety, panic attacks, energy crashes at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, worrying about things you never used to. So I say to my women, you might have been someone who'd jump on a train and just go into Paris for the weekend or whatever, not give it a second thought. And now you're worrying whether there's going to be a car parking space where you'll meet your friend at a restaurant later. It's kind of noticing these differences and thinking, why am I reacting like this? Why? This isn't me. And women often say to me, I'm not an anxious person. I'm starting to feel anxious about things. That's progesterone deficiency. But if you're 35, 40 as a woman onwards, you're going to be progesterone deficient. If you're 50 plus as a man, you're not going to be producing it in the levels to be effective. So I've got my husband on the protocol now.
We need more people to know about this, don't we?
Yeah, progesterone is where to start. Progesterone and blood sugar regulation. If you're looking at a lifestyle and what you can do to manage your symptoms and traits, I would be looking at progesterone and blood sugar regulation.
Because you did say before, actually, when we had a chat, that you can be symptomless from PMDD, can't you, with the support of progesterone?
Absolutely.
And also, so you're saying nutrition obviously plays a big part in that. And anything else that tangibly that you can do before you've managed to get the progesterone?
For PMDD? Yeah, loads. So PMDD usually has a link with histamine, blood sugar regulation and gut. They're 3 things that can drive PMDD. So they are elements that I would look at. The thing I would always say with the gut, lots of people come to me and go, right, I need to sort my gut out. If you're not sleeping properly and you've not got any energy and you're brain fogged, the last thing you need to be doing is a gut healing protocol. It takes a lot of bandwidth and thought and remembering supplements, and it takes a lot. So I always say, let's regulate your blood sugar first, because it's the simplest with the biggest outcome that you can achieve.
And how do we regulate our blood sugar?
Stop fasting. I'm not a fan of intermittent fasting for women. I think it puts the foot down on the adrenals. I've got women in my clinic whose hair is falling out and they're like, but fasting's good for me. I'm like, is it? So consistent meals, at least 3 times a day. If you've got blood sugar issues, you might want to weave in a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack. And start with getting 30 grams of protein within 1 hour of waking up. And to give you an idea, 30 grams of protein is 5 eggs, okay? So build up to this. People are so progesterone deficient and protein and progesterone deficient. But if you start that, if you can get that in the morning, that stops the cascade of all the hormones kind of collapsing through the day. If you're missing breakfast, or you're having a carb-based breakfast, or you're having coffee on an empty stomach, you are starting the whole hormonal chaos for that day, and that will affect how you sleep. So if you can start switching that up, that's the simplest thing you can build up to. Okay, and it might be, for me, sometimes I just don't want to chew in the morning. I'm like, I can't bear the eggs and the salmon. I just don't want it. I might have a cup of bone broth with a scoop of collagen in it. Okay, you're going to get your protein that way. So you can get curious about what that looks like.
And I don't know if you agree, but there are some good brands now that do protein like powders, don't they? But there's the is it Will powders? I think they're specifically
some great ones.
Yeah. So if you're not really fancying like cooking something.
So food for us is complex quite often. if you're not interested in food, it's going to be really hard to motivate you to want to do it.
Talking of food, look who's just walked in.
There's lots of steps involved with making food, and we forget we're hungry. We don't realise we're hungry. We get distracted. We're all over the place. So we need to make it work for us. And quite often I'll see my women and they're like, oh, I know I should be having the eggs and salmon, but it's just been one of those weeks and I haven't done it, so I just skipped it. And I'm like, I would rather you have a pre-made protein shake that you buy, like the Huel ones. You know, I'm not necessarily a fan of Huel. It's got loads of crap in it, but I would rather you have that than you're missing it. So have those like ones that are just like, I've got to grab and go. I've got to get something. We've got to look at these things through an ADHD lens. We don't want to look at trying to create a neurotypical plan for ourselves that we're going to fail and then beat ourselves up for. We have to make it ADHD friendly. All my stuff is out in the kitchen. I do not have a John Lewis show home. I have got my blenders out, my food pressers out, because there's too many steps to get it out and just won't use it. Whereas if it's all there, you can use your cycle if you're still cycling that around ovulation. If you don't react at that time, if that's a good time of energy for you, batch it all up, prepare a lot of things so it's easier for you, and just give yourself some grace when you don't want to do it. But just don't miss that breakfast. I'd rather just get something in.
Yeah, and I can actually want to share on that because I lost my cycles, didn't I, like you did, from fasting. And the symptoms that I got were all very much of what you just said. And for 3 years, I didn't have a cycle. And for 1 month, had 3 meals a day with 3 snacks. And I got my cycle back after 3 years.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the difference it has made on my ADHD, on every aspect of my life. Obviously, it's a constant work in progress, but it just shows you like the difference in just changing your diet and getting rid of those unhealthy habits, doesn't it? What
Absolutely.
It can do. So we talk a lot about like later on in life with, hormones and how that affects us. But since learning so much from you, I look back at another really tricky time in my life, and that was as a teenager, and how I presented. And again, the hyperactivity and just completely, my dad said he went bald early because of me, basically. Not going to school, smoking in the bushes, doing all the things I shouldn't be doing. So I think, we can guess how that's going to show up as a teenager with ADHD and their hormone imbalances. Is it the same advice? Because obviously they're going to be put on the pill, right? Probably more than likely, like I was.
Yeah.
But what can we do? What can a parent do if they're teenagers, all of a sudden they've gone from this really well-behaved child and now they're running riot?
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
So it's exactly puberty, and for a girl is exactly the same hormonal profile as perimenopause. Okay. We're progesterone deficient and estrogen dominant. So everything I've described today around that and what that pattern looks like is what our young girls are going through. But the difference they've got is that all their mates are eating or not eating. They're eating chocolate bars, cans of fizzy drinks, and they're at school. You've got no control over what they're eating. And it's a really difficult time. We as an adult can go, oh, I'm fed up of feeling like shit. I want to do something about it. Whereas it's really hard for teens. They've got so many things influencing it. So you can use the progesterone cream if they're willing to use it. You don't want to give more than 150 in the follicular phase because it will shut down ovulation. But it would be 50 mg of the cream before breakfast, lunch and dinner. That can really help. My children have progesterone cream as and when is needed. And it's, again, Dr. Platt's work. Trying to get in as much protein as you can. That's what I would suggest, But it's much harder to work with teen girls because of all the external influences that they have to cope with.
So you mentioned ADHD meds earlier, and going back to now what we've just learned about hormones, do you think that if we could get to a place where we start to look at an individual's hormones, like teenagers, later on in life, someone with ADHD, and manage that first, would we see a difference in what medication we might need, or if we need medication at all?
I absolutely 100% believe that. There's a great book by Dr. Phyllis Bronson that is all about bioidentical hormones and emotions and mental health. And she's spent decades researching that, managing women's moods. There's also Dr. Rosensweet in the States who trains doctors in the menopause method. And he says every practitioner's first approach should be, let me sort your hormones out and let's see what you're left with. And I really believe if women had been allowed to be involved in the development of medicine, we'd have a very different approach to mental health for men and women. I honestly think hormones can play a massive role. And when we've got that, let's see what we're left with. You know, quite often women come to me and they're like, I don't know how to have meds, I don't know how to go hormones. And I'm completely transparent and just say, my bias is hormones. But if we sort your hormones out and regulate those, then you know what you're left with the ADHD, because we don't want to use meds to treat a hormone imbalance, and we don't want to try and use hormone practices to treat ADHD. And we can get really clear. The thing for me with meds, when women, they're very good at masking hormone imbalances. They're very good at masking adrenal function issues, blood sugar regulation issues, progesterone deficiency issues. So those things are still happening when, you know, whether the meds are there or not, whether you can feel them or not, the deficiencies and incorrect ratios in the body are still having an impact on us. We just can't feel it. So my bias is hormones first.
Yeah. And it is so important because even if you are on medication, they're going to respond differently at different times in your cycle. And I never knew that. And again, when I got my cycle, when I didn't have my cycle, I lost it. Obviously, that's when I felt like I needed medication more than ever. But actually, again, the changes in cycle later on meant that my medication showed up so much, a lot stronger than it was previously, because my estrogen levels have gone up. So it's just so important to know that, isn't it? Because then you can get the right dosage for you at different times of your cycle.
And especially if you're someone who's considering HRT, you need to know that could affect how effective your medication is. So estrogen sensitizes the medication, progesterone tends to dull it down. So women get stabilized on the medication, they go into their luteal phase and go, my meds aren't working, and no one really knows what to do about it. So lots of different prescribers I see, well, let's try adding this in and let's try doing this, because it hasn't been researched enough.
It's been Mental Health Awareness Week, World Day, wasn't it? Mental Health World yesterday, yes. And I heard something today that said between 45 and 55 is the the highest percentage of women come into the doctors and say, I'm struggling with my mental health, and they get diagnosed with depression or anxiety and either, given holistic support or put on medication. Do you think that has something to do with our hormones changing?
100%.
So again, if we got our hormones, looked at, that could be a whole different story. That would be a different stat.
Completely different story. For me, it comes back to progesterone. A woman and a man actually cannot stabilize their mood and regulate their nervous system and sleep deeply without sufficient progesterone in the body. That is its major roles. All it's looked at medically is to protect the lining of the uterus. Progesterone does so much more than that. So of course, progesterone is the first hormone to go in perimenopause. So naturally, that hormone goes, we don't get the mood stabilization, we don't get the nervous system support. So of course, mental health goes up in women at that point.
And it's funny that people haven't connected the dots enough to be making these changes.
And that's our misogynistic medical system.
It seems like, if you look at ADHD, the late diagnosis, and this hormone, information, the two together could change the story for a lot of the mental health numbers we are seeing, I believe. Do you?
100%. But here we are.
Okay, so let's move on to the fire round questions. Hey. So, ADHD and hormones in one word.
I can't do it in one word. Expansion.
So I've put partner support. We have spoke a little bit about this, but I think what's one thing a partner could do the week before their ADHD woman's, their partner, friend, cycle?
I think just ask, what can I do? Or just do it. Just do it.
Just do the thing,
I'm doing dinner, I'm doing the cleaning, whatever it is. I know there's very stereotypical kind of roles. That just tends to be what happens to the dynamic in most of the people in my clinic. But just step up a bit more than you would usually in that space.
What about someone who has just feels like they've just entered perimenopause? What's one thing that they can go and do today that will support them?
Regulate your blood sugar. I would say progesterone, but that takes a little bit more thought. But I would say look at your blood sugar.
So protein, no fasting.
Yeah.
Healthcare message. If you could sit down with every healthcare provider treating ADHD women, what would you tell them?
Please empower your women to track their cycle and help them to understand it.
What would you say to a woman who's been told she's too sensitive or too emotional her whole life?
Time to fuck off. Get bigger,
for the swear words.
get bigger, get louder, get more sensitive. I feel so many ADHD women and ADHD men, I'm sure, but I always speak about women because that's my community that I deal with. We have abandoned our own needs over everybody else's for so much of our life. And in perimenopause, the BS filter is off. It's time to take back and be all of those things.
Yes. And future hope. What gives you hope for the future of women's health?
It is changing. The tide is changing, not fast enough. But as you said, in the last couple of years, there have been some research that's coming out around ADHD women and hormones. And I think it's the women that are pushing it. It's not coming from up here. It's coming from women saying, I've had enough. I found solutions for myself. This isn't good enough. And I think the role social media has played in that has been amazing. So there is hope. I am hopeful that it's changing, but I want it now.
And just so we're clear, yes or no, do ADHD women struggle more with their hormone imbalances than those without?
Yes, absolutely.
And final message, last words to any woman with ADHD who is struggling right now because of her hormones.
It's not in your head. It's really not. It's real. The hormones play a massive role with your ADHD. So if you're being gaslit by other people, don't gaslight yourself. It's real.
Go and ask for progesterone, basically.
Get progesterone. Everyone needs to be lathered in progesterone.
and last question, actually, life with or without ADHD, if you could go back.
God, with. It'd be so boring without. Can't imagine it. Absolutely.
Oh, the boring life. What a dream. Thank you so much, Adele.
My pleasure.
Thank you.